Our next speaker is a lifelong resident of Oklahoma. He is married with 3 children, 6 grandchildren, and is a 6th generation to live on his home place in rural Craig County. His degrees are a Bachelor's of Science in Computer Science and an Associate's degree in Welding Technology. He worked 30 years for ConocoPhillips and retired full-time to his ranch 8 years ago. I'm jealous, by the way. He has been involved in this wind turbine battle for 3 years. Everybody please join me in welcoming Mr. John Spence.
Good afternoon, folks. Really appreciate you being here. I'm going to start talking about a lot of what's going on in this State House. You cannot pick and choose from the left-wing agenda and call yourself a Republican, much less a conservative. We live in the reddest state in the nation. Outside of large metropolitan areas, you don't get elected unless you're a Republican in Oklahoma. They will all tell you they're Republicans, and they will all tell you they're patriots, and they'll all tell you they're conservatives. Yet, as we strive to eliminate, or at the very least, significantly regulate one of the keystones of the left-wing agenda, these 700-foot wind turbines, our Oklahoma politicians placate us with lip service, but do nothing. Yep. The wind companies, and I'll add solar as well, are foreknown. German, the Netherlands, Italian, Canadian, British. They've received billions of dollars in government subsidies over the years, our tax money. And they turn that around and fire politicians with it. Wind and solar displaces dependable on-demand power, increases utility costs, reduces the quality of life and the property values of neighboring properties, and will ultimately become an environmental disaster when they cease to work and become obsolete. Useful idiots. This term was coined by the communists, referring to people that could be swayed or paid to protest or speak for their cause, not knowing the impacts of what they're doing. I remember the great Rush Limbaugh said when the Berlin Wall fell that the communists would all turn to the climate movement to have their impact. If you wonder, like me, where DEI, men and women's sports, transgender movement, open borders, sanctuary cities, men can have babies, no cash bail, anti-Semitism, now support for our, and yes, the green agenda comes from, you need look no further than Russia, China, George Soros, and the Democratic Socialist Party, really the communists in this country. Through TikTok, Twitter, and the left-wing press in this country, the Russians and Chinese harness useful idiots in the U.S. to support these causes that most of us find crazy. All of these things are designed to tear the fabric of America and weaken the country. The Green Agenda works to eliminate the use of so-called fossil fuels and nuclear power. As far back as the 1970s, the Soviet Union was key in the anti-nuclear protest in the U.S. Successfully, I might add. In Western Europe, Germany, and Britain, the Russians successfully fomented green unrest, causing their governments to shut down coal and nuclear plants. When the wind and solar failed to serve their needs, they turned to Russian natural gas. Coal is cheap. China, the world's largest polluter by far, sells us equipment for green energy manufactured in Chinese plants that are powered by coal-fired energy. Does anybody see the irony in this? It's really simple. Whether they realize it or not, anyone that is supporting the green agenda by failing to eliminate or significantly regulate it plays into the hands of those that want to destroy our country as we know it. Trump knows this. He and his Energy Secretary are doing everything they can do to unwind the green agenda. They've killed the federal subsidies. If significant construction is not completed by July of 26, they will not get any subsidies. They undid the illegal decree by the EPA that CO2 was a pollutant. This should collapse the carbon credit market, which is another huge source of revenue for these wind and solar. Oklahoma politicians need to get in this fight. We need significant regulation on green energy, which is the cornerstone of the left-wing agenda. gas, and nuclear power. Non-action in these matters equates to support for political agenda. Back to the state of Oklahoma. 20 years ago, the Oklahoma legislature established setbacks for wind turbines. At that time, the turbines were 320 feet tall and limited to west of I-35. The setbacks were 1.5 nautical miles from a school, a hospital, or an airport. The original legislation had 1.5 miles from a home. But the wind lobby, including Farm Bureau, killed that piece of it. I guess it was fine for kids to have peace in school, but when they went home where they lived 2/3 of their lives, we don't really care about that. Craig County, far northeast Oklahoma, 675 square miles in size. It averages about 21 people per square mile. The average farm size is about 300 acres according to the USDA. Tell me where on 300 acres you're going to find refuge from the sound and visual impact of your neighbor's 700-foot wind turbine. There are about 35 people that have signed wind leases in my area. There are about 500 non-participant homes that would be impacted. Directly affecting me are 3 large non-resident landowners, all inherited their property, don't live out there, that have signed leases. They live 18 to 70 miles away. Obviously, their daily lives will not be affected. I share 3.5 miles of border with that lease footprint. While I don't believe we should have industrial wind turbines at all, mammoth industrial turbines are 700 feet tall. Turning at a leisurely 10 revolutions per minute, the tip of the blade is moving at 190 miles per hour and can throw an object nearly 3,000 feet. If they're going to exist in the more densely populated eastern part of the state, they must have significant setbacks. We must have a minimum of 0.5 nautical mile from non-participants' property line and 1 nautical mile from the existing home. Excuse me, the wind's getting me here. Some claim, and we've all heard it, I can do anything on my land and ag land cannot be restricted. It's not true. The truth is Oklahoma already has laws that limit what industrial activities can take place on ag land. Agricultural land is not intended for or suited for all types of industrial complexes. It is the law in Oklahoma that industrial cattle or swine feedlots cannot be built wherever a landowner chooses. Certain conditions must be met for feedlots, and 1 mile setback from homes are a requirement. Large wind turbine and solar complexes are industrial activities, which should be subject to the same type of regulations and setbacks as other industrial activities taking place in the rural parts of Oklahoma. The 3 current setback restrictions of industrial operation in rural Oklahoma lands are cattle and sheep industrial facility, 1 mile. Swine industrial operations, 1 mile. Poultry industrial operations, 1.5 miles. The above common sense setbacks and other restrictions on industrial activity in rural areas are already law in Oklahoma. But these listed above are much less intrusive to the lives of the hundreds of neighbors for miles around that would be impacted by wind turbines. The 3 above activities are truly related to agricultural activities, however, they're still industrial activities and setbacks are required from neighbors as they should be. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John.